Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Marketing Sikhs in Enterprise has come to Leatherhead today, and I'm going to be talking to Dr. Kulvinder Singh, who has been a GP for over 30 years. So let's introduce first Dr. Ji, Waheguru Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Kulvinder Singh, let me ask you a question. You've been a GP for 30 years, and we've come to a very nice place in Leatherhead. And obviously it's someone's house that we've decided to hold this meeting today. So will you shed some light first where we are?
Indeed, it's a great pleasure. And thank you for coming, first of all. And many thanks to the Sikh channel for taking this time off and coming all the way in this leafy part of Surrey. This part of Surrey is called Bookham, encroaching upon Leatherhead. This particular house, which is being hosted by my friend, Mr. Tarlochan Singh Chahal, is a friend for many, many years. We used to be together in Maidstone, and eventually he shifted here because of his business responsibilities.
It is very countryside, I have to say, very, very British. But let me talk about yourself first. You're going to be introducing the guests that we have, but on a personal level, I know you've been a GP for 30 years, but previous to that, you were working in Libya under Colonel Gaddafi, as you mentioned to me. Why don't you explain what you were doing for Colonel Gaddafi?
This is very interesting and, of course, a bit historical now. Soon after I graduated from Delhi, I had this opportunity to go and work in Colonel Gaddafi's land in Tripoli and very close by deserts. My role there was to really develop primary care services in that rather barren piece of land. But there were lots of foreigners. That included some French people, Bulgarians, Libyans, and of course Indians who were involved in the construction company and so forth. And through that, I had an opportunity even to take care of one of the family members of Colonel Gaddafi too. It was quite an exciting experience, something very different. I'll always cherish that, whatever I saw and did there.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So you were born in Delhi. So when did you leave Delhi to come over here?
You're right, and I'm proud of that. I was born in Delhi. My basic qualifications of medicine were from Delhi Medical College, Maulana Azad. For whatever reason, youngsters in that age group or in that time, they all wanted to leave India and get settled either in England or preferably in America. Though father could afford to send me direct to US, but I thought I'll be self-made kind of person. And that's really what prompted me to go and make some money in Libya first. I joined there in 1978, worked there for a couple of years. And then England was supposed to be a hop-on station to go on to the US. But when I came here, did my exams, and the very first attempt, I passed it. And those were the times when the passing result was really down to 30-40%. And everyone said, look, you're getting this opportunity, why don't you give it a try, and then aim to go to America if you think appropriate. But as luck would have it, here I am.
It should be. So let's go inside and talk to some of the guests that we have.
Indeed. Thank you. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. A very warm welcome to the audience, the viewers of Sikh channel. Before that, may I thank hugely to Sikh channel for coming all the way to this leafy part of Surrey to organize this program. Marketing Sikhs in Enterprise. But is it Marketing Sikhs in Enterprise program? May not be. Because we're really going to be discussing a variety of issues day to day that we encounter in our lives, in our Sikhism. I have a gathering of very distinguished guests here all around me here. Family friends, family members, and so forth, who are going to be contributing and discussing, expressing their own personal views and their experiences of life about Sikhism and how we're going to be progressing from here onwards. Ladies and gentlemen, may I upfront say this, that this is more like a very social get-together for the family and friends. We have our own views, and I'm sure you would. We may be saying something or discussing something which may not agree with your philosophical views. And up front, I would like to apologize if this is not in alignment with your views or it hurts you. Please accept our apologies up front. Right here, may I thank hugely to my friend, long-time friend, Tarlochan Singh Chahal, who's very kindly hosting this and invited all our guests, and of course has served us beautiful refreshments. And I'm looking forward to the later on meal as well. I can tell you that's going to be dishy too. Now, before wasting any more time, what I intend to do is to ask some questions, first of all, to the ladies on my right. It's just for convenience, by the way, ladies are sitting on the right and men on the left. There is no such pattern in our lifestyle. We're very carefree people and rather intermingle. So please don't have any ideas of anything else other than convenience. But did you know that Sikhs overall are about 26 to 27 million in this world? More than the Jews. Why do I bring in Jews? Because Jews have really done well in this world. And it's a kind of a benchmarking for Sikhs. We need to match it up. And did you know that this is the 5th largest religion in the world? Aren't you proud of that? I'm sure you are, like I am. This was well recognized by the British Army whilst they were in India. At one time, 20% of British Army Indians recruited were Sikhs. That's almost 100,000 pounds. Isn't it a fantastic figure? And sadly, during the World War I and II, 85,000, I repeat the words, 85,000 Sikhs sacrificed their lives to make this world more loving and peaceful for all of us to live in. Incredible history, uncountable sacrifices that Sikhs have made. That makes me really proud. Before we start questioning or taking views of the ladies, let me remind you as well. Sikhs have been very successful in their ventures in this country, India, and in the rest of the world. Well, we all know about our Prime Minister, Manmohan Singh. We all know about our ex-President Gyani Zail Singh. The current Chief of Indian Army is Sikh. Montek Singh in the finance is doing tremendous work. At home here, recently, a young Sikh has been sworn in as the Justice for the High Court, Kulvinder Singh Ji, QC. And we all recognize the word Mota Singh. Those are the people, those have come into limelight. Does it mean Sikhs are not doing a great job otherwise? I totally disagree with you. We have taken huge strides in acquiring the political stage, in acquiring high status positions, in acquiring these positions that nobody else has done in this short time. We have young doctors, young consultants. In very young age they become consultants. We have entrepreneurs, business people. We have people who are providing care in the community, running nursing homes. And of course, yes, we do lack certain aspects, for example, in sports, maybe even in the political arena and so forth. So no more waiting. Let's go to the ladies and see what they think about some of these issues. But I think it will be only ideal if you talk to them and ask them to introduce themselves and then go on from there. And I'm going to hand this mic over to Dr. Chahal.
Hello, Sat Sri Akal Ji, Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. My name is Pooja. I'm a consultant neurologist at Ealing Hospital and Imperial NHS Trust. I have a family, I have 2 children, and my husband is also a cardiologist, and he'll be talking today as well.
Sat Sri Akal Ji, Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Mera naam Bhupi Kaur hai, te main te Kulvinder ਅਸੀਂ ਮੇਡਸਟੋਨ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਮੇਰੇ ਹਸਬੰਡ ਜੀਪੀ ਨੇ I was a teacher by profession but ਹੁਣ ਮੈਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਹਸਬੰਡ ਨਾਲ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਪ੍ਰੈਕਟਿਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਪ੍ਰੈਕਟਿਸ ਮੈਨੇਜਰ ਆ we have 3 children 2 qualified doctors 1 in university I'll now pass it over to Harjit.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. My name is Harjit. I'm a market access manager for a pharmaceutical company. I'm married to my husband who's a chartered accountant. We have 2 young children and we live in Surrey. I'll pass you over to Dr. Singh.
Well, that's very kind of you, you young ladies. Now then, that sets the stage very nicely. I'm going to ask you, ladies. Sikhs have done tremendously well, but there are some areas where we can still improve or strive to improve. For example, something about education, something about women's rights and so forth, and how to really transfer this wealth of knowledge from grandparents, parents to children. Maybe I'll touch base with Pooja and request her to say something about it.
Thank you very much. I think my experience of coming into medicine, as I mentioned earlier, I'm a practicing consultant in this country now, it started first off when I got into medical school, and my parents, very proud of me, would tell our family, friends, relatives that I'd gone into medicine and was going to be a doctor one day. And they were obviously, I'm an only child, and they were obviously inevitably very proud of this. But I was quite shocked often at the response they would get. Many would say, "Oh dear, how is she going to manage that? How is she going to balance her life? How is she going to have a family? How is she going to have children? Is this the correct career choice for her? Should you have encouraged her to do this? Maybe she would have been better off doing the normal stereotypes that women would have gone in earlier on. Perhaps teaching was often a stereotype that women went into, or childcare, anything like that would have been more suitable for her." My parents were very strong about this, and they thought I'd made absolutely the right choice for myself, for my abilities, and never let those prejudices that they heard from others influence their support for me. And I guess now, many years later, I have achieved my dreams in terms of my career. But in addition to that, I haven't let my family lifestyle go. I have managed to have children, and we have a family home from them, and to my best ability, we try and balance the work-life side of things as much as we can. We have a lot of support, and that's important, I think. I've always, as I mentioned, had amazing support from both my mother and father, who have been inspirational throughout my journey in life, but also from my husband, and I think that's been key. Despite having children, I have not had to sacrifice anything there. And then looking onto that from your in-laws, it's important that everyone is supporting you so that you can meet that balance, which thankfully with that support I've managed to do.
Yeah, education is a very important part of any community, and I feel women must be very well educated, not just needing to go out and work, but to be able to do a very good job at home if they wish to be a housewife and raise children. So education, I believe, is very, very important for women. Whatever they choose, they need to be well supported. And we need to look after their rights and raise their profile in society as well. And the other thing what we need to do is educate women and everybody else with regards to alcoholism. We only know one Kiranjit Ahluwalia, but I'm sure there are many more Kiranjit Ahluwalias in the community. I'm sure you have all seen the movie Provoked. So we need to really do something about alcoholism and bringing the issue home to everybody, how it can harm home life.
That's very inspirational, and some true facts, those being stated by Pooja and Bhupi. And you can jolly well see I've changed the sides. But we got some very exciting people here sitting on this side. And to my left is Mr. Amarjit Singh Dassan, and to my right is Mr. Tarlochan Singh. Baji, we call him with fondness. They're going to be talking about education, and they're also going to be talking about a little bit about what Sikhism really means, their values. Over to Amarjit first.
Sri Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Sri Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Jiss tarah ki dassya hai, I am Amarjit Singh Dassan. I am ex-bank manager and now in the clothing business. I am doing a seva in Sri Guru Singh Sabha South Hall from the last 30 years. and also Chair of Governor of Khalsa Primary School, South Hall. I would like to speak about faith schools, particularly Sikh faith schools. In the beginning of the show, we have discussed about children education and giving them the Sikh values or the Punjabi values. In this country, the government is of the view that all the faith schools are doing very well. Last year, they have given permission to open 99 faith schools. At the number one was the Church of England, number two, Catholic schools, and I can say very proudly that number three was the Sikh faith schools. The permission of 4 Sikh faith schools have been given. And in September, there will be about 5,000 Sikh children going to the Sikh faith schools. This is a remarkable achievement. This is just like the Chief Khalsa Diwan started 6 schools in India in 1908. There are 46 schools and doing very well. In this country also, there is a lot of potential for the Sikh faith schools. The issues which we were discussing earlier, how we can pass on our culture, our religion, and our language to the children. In all the Sikh faith schools, we teach Sikh history and the Punjabi. I would like also to mention that nowhere in the world Sikh history is being taught in the school. And this is the first step we are taking in Khalsa Primary School, teaching Sikh history. If you want to know about the gurus, which wars they have fought, what they have done, nowhere, anywhere in the world, this is being taught. This is being taught in the gurdwaras like Sakhis. Now, in Khalsa Primary School, whenever there is assembly, the children 7 to 8 years, they conduct the whole of the assembly. They do the ardas, they take the hukumnama also. So this sort of generation is coming up. And what we want to achieve, we can achieve through faith schools. It is very easy to open a faith schools. From the last year, the new concept has come, free schools, in which the communities or the faiths can apply to open a school, and 100% capital expenditure will be given by the government, and 100% running of the school will be by the government. So there is no outlay of funds. The only thing is the commitment. If there are committed persons who are keen to open the schools, then the full support is available. See, whatever problem, the alcoholism and our language, our passing on the things, everything can be solved. The things are very simple. The only thing is their need for the commitment for these projects. And the expense which we for a child in a faith school is about 5,000 per annum. So if 5,000 students will be studying in Sikh faith schools, government will be giving about 25 million pounds per year to run these schools. And for an open school, they give between 10 to 15 million pounds as a building and other capital expense. So in this country, there is a wonderful opportunity. This is the only country in the world where the faith schools are being sponsored. In US or India, nowhere the government is keen to provide this money, and their experiment is running very well. So if we unite together, we can prove in this country that the Sikhs are good educationists, and this will enhance our reputation in the country. Thank you.
Well, that is brilliantly spoken, and you can understand children, education, they're the pillars of the nation. If you're grooming them nicely, they will perform, they will deliver, and enhance Sikhism. But I do want to go back to Amarjit again and really ask him a searching question. What exactly is being done to encourage people to join these faith schools? And are there any rewards or some kind of incentives being provided so that more and more people actually join such schools?
In all the schools, there is a long waiting list. In Guru Nanak His Academy, in the school there are 1,450 students, and the waiting list is over 3,000. So the government has given a permission them to open another school and they will be funding 100%. So in Hayes on Springfield Road, over 2,000 students will be studying. And A-level results or GSA level results are excellent. Their students are going to the top universities. So there is a long queue. We don't see, just like going to a good university, Oxford University or Cambridge University or UCL or Imperial College, they do not need to provide any incentive. See, another thing I would like to share with you, there was a problem in Hayes and Hillingdon, and their 3 schools were not doing very well. Then that borough has approached to the Guru Nanak Academy that you provide the governing body, the Sikhs, to run those schools. So, see, it is good to talk about our religion or give knowledge. The schools which can give the knowledge, a child which will start doing Nitnem at the primary school will do forever. If a person has not done Nitnem in the childhood, it is very difficult to adopt this practice later on. So if the Sikh governing bodies are in government schools, in public schools, this will enhance our reputation, and this will enhance the reputation of our Sikh faith schools. See, there is a long queue to go to Church of England schools. See, the one school is being opened in Slough, and they have said we will take only 50% Sikh students and 50% from other faiths. So if it is our own governing body, we will implement some Sikh principles in running the school, and other faith students will also understand how great and how fair our religion is. So this is the best way, this is the best missionary way to spread our religion. Thank you.
Again, very well said, how fair our religion is. I can actually vouch for this any time, any day, anywhere in this world. Waheguru Ji da Khalsa, Waheguru Ji di Fateh. We're back for part 2. Just to remind our viewers for the Sikh channel programs, this program about the marketing Sikhs in enterprise and about various other issues are being discussed today at Tarlochan Singh Chahal's house residence in Leafy, Surrey, as we call it. He's very kindly honored that. And of course, once again, grateful to the Sikh channel organizers for coming all the way from Midlands. We have discussed a variety of issues, and we want to move on about the professionalism. How well are we doing in this particular strand? We have some very talented young people who have attained very high positions at a very young age. Very proud of them. Without wasting any time, I'm going to introduce to you, first of all, a very young, capable gentleman whom I've known from childhood and has performed brilliantly. If I needed any cardiologist anytime, hope I don't, but if I do, I know where I shall be going. I hand you over to Dr. Navtej Chahal.
Thank you. Sat Sri Akal, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. As I've been introduced, my name is Nav Chahal. I'm a cardiology registrar, currently working at the Royal Brompton Hospital in London. I was educated in Maidstone Grammar School, and spent 6 years as a medical student. And after that, I spent 4 years in junior doctor posts. And then I was selected to undergo higher training in cardiology, which takes approximately 9 years, so quite a long haul, about 19 years in total. At the moment, my focus is mainly on imaging of the heart, so taking pictures to understand quickly what's going on with the heart and to try and detect early signs of heart attacks. The other interest that I have is in the prevention of heart disease, and again, that involves imaging using ultrasonography of the neck arteries in the heart and in the neck, and that gives us clues as to which patients may benefit from early treatment with statins, blood pressure lowering treatment, before a problem arises. This was based on research that we did on about 2,400 individuals living in the Southall and Ealing area. Again, we used ultrasonography of the heart and of the neck arteries to see which patients may have early signs of heart disease. And in collaboration with Dr. Singh, we have managed to implement such a program in the NHS, which is the first of its kind, and it's been rolled out in Maidstone. And we very much hope that we can roll this out to people in our community in a practical sense, not just for research.
That's very kind of you to talk about briefly about yourself and what fantastic job you're doing. Can I actually go back about the trends of the jobs that Sikhs and Punjabis in general have been doing in this country? And if you can touch base on the historically what they have been doing in India.
Well, firstly, I think in this country, as we are very much the second generation, we have been trying to pursue largely professional-orientated careers within medicine, law, accountancy. And we, I think, are very well represented there now. We weren't under the pressure from the low glass ceiling that our predecessors faced in this country. And I think we very much have achieved at higher levels, and that will continue, I think. However, there probably still is underrepresentation at the very highest levels in all aspects of the professions. I think we are still underrepresented in other areas of life, particularly sports. I'm a keen sportsman. I play cricket and football still, but for many reasons, Sikhs and Indians at large do not pursue, I think, rigorous sporting activities, and that has personal health implications, but also means that we don't participate actively in team sports, and we very rarely see Asian sports stars at the international stage. And in terms of other spheres of life, in terms of media and music, again, we have the talent, but we clearly are not being represented, even on programs such as Pop Idol and The Voice. Very seldom do we see a British Asian talent coming through. So I think there is a bottleneck somewhere outside of the traditional professions and through education.
Thank you. You do agree with me. There is a bit of a gap, and that's something we need to be encouraging other Asians to, or Sikhs to be joining in. Is that what you implied, I suppose? Yeah. Let me bring in here Pooja. And once again, I know Pooja has introduced herself. Probably she was very reserved what she was talking about. I can tell you in confidence. She is probably one of the youngest, I repeat, youngest consultant neurologist in this country. You can imagine her talent has been recognized, it has been tapped into, and given her the position in a prime hospital in London. We're all very proud of her. Pooja, if I may ask you, with this stretcher that you have now, and what you explained earlier on about the past, how do you think you're going to cope, and what would your advice be to people of your age or your type of career, how to cope and manage their lives?
Thank you very much. I've always said this, and I think I alluded to it earlier. I think despite any prejudices you get along the way, you can't stop that from achieving what you've always wanted to and strive towards it and work towards your dreams. In medicine in particular, certainly for people from the South Indian subcontinent, there was a huge problem getting into medicine for a start, particularly following the conception of the NHS in 1948. There was an expansion of the NHS, and there weren't enough doctors to provide the service. We had this amazing body that we set up, a free service at the point of care, but not enough doctors to fulfill it within the UK. And that's where the immigration laws were laxed in this country, and a number of people came over from India, particularly India, Pakistan as well, to try and fill that gap. Almost similar to the deficit that there was in the British Army, which you alluded to earlier, when the Sikh military came over and helped out there. Almost a similar gap. We came again to help the NHS here. And almost you could say that the doctors here were the backbone of the NHS then, and to some extent still are, from India and Pakistan. But they received a lot of prejudice back then. Many of them wanted to pursue academic careers in major teaching hospitals. Working in a hospital where there are students coming, more scope for research is a very prestigious thing within the NHS. And many people who came here from India wanted to pursue that. But due to the prejudice, the racism that there was in this country there, they weren't allowed to achieve that. And many of them went into specialties that weren't their first choice at all. Thankfully, times have changed. I think as Sikhs, we've raised our profile in so many ways. Many times we were prejudiced because people didn't know who Sikhs were. They saw someone with a turban, they didn't know whether they were from Afghanistan, Pakistan, or from India. But I think we've strived through TV, such as the Sikh channel, through the media, to try and raise our profile. And with other people in India, other sects of India, we've managed to get ourselves into those high places. And therefore, although, yes, I am very proud of my achievements, but it is that little bit easier now than it was then to rise. And in terms of answering your question, what can we say to other people? Well, the sky's the limit. And with the right support, with the right direction, and I think it's important to talk to people. You may not know what a certain career holds for you until you speak to those people who are actually doing it, and perhaps in the same position as you, people who are, as I said earlier, I'm a working mum. I work, but I have a family life. And if that's what you pursue, it can be done.
If there's a will, there's a way. That's the message. And you must strive to improve, progressive nature. Continue to work hard. It's the very loud message coming from these two youngsters who have attained very high status in the NHS in this country. I'm going to be asking Harjit about her views, about what does she think about where the Asian health is going, and is the pharmaceutical industries helping us to tackle that, be that through the research or be that through the need assessment and whatever.
Thank you. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Yes, it's an interesting question, Uncle. It's one that many people do ask me a lot, because they see a great indifference and striking imbalance between the NHS and the lack of resource and funding, and also pharmaceutical companies who seem to be perceived to be reaping in millions and billions in profits. So we do try and strike a very harmonious balance, and we try to work with the NHS by working collaboratively with the NHS, by working in having joint agreements, and to have a mutually beneficial outcome where we will work with the payers, the fund holders in the NHS, and to agree to look at what the needs of the health population are. That is already done by the NHS and the funding bodies and public health. There's something called a joint needs health assessment, and that looks at the entire population in that locality, looking at the age, the demographics, any poverty, education, and also the health needs of any ethnic minorities. So once those are underpinned and underlined, then that's when we will work with the payers to look at how we can help target some of these or prioritize these action plans, and these will be manifested as commissioning priorities for that locality in which you live in. And in areas where there are high density of ethnic populations, there will be programs to look at how we can prevent strokes, look at heart disease, and how we can minimize the impact of these, not just on the patient, but on the NHS as well. And by doing this, we work with community leaders, and by getting speakers or consultants such as Pooja or Nav, they will come in and speak in mosques, Sikh temples, synagogues, to look at how we can improve these, and that's specifically aimed at that disease area for those communities.
Thank you very much. And may I ask you a very direct question? What do you think that can Sikhs really tap into this opportunity to join some of the pharmaceutical industries, may that in research or whatever jobs like you're doing, or even in marketing, pharmaceutical expertise and so forth?
Yes, absolutely. There's the pharmaceutical industry, although it may seem to be in decline, there are areas which are growing immensely, particularly in untapped areas of diseases. we're always looking for talent, and we're looking, there's not just the typical idea of people working in labs. Of course, there's a research and development side of it where we need lots of scientists and chemists, but we also need people who work in the regulatory side. We need good degrees with biochemistry and physiology, chemistry degrees, who can work in the clinical research side, getting the drug from the molecule to the shelf in the pharmacy also. And there's also the huge diligence part in monitoring the safety of drugs as well once they've been approved, and making sure that patients are aware of not just the benefits of the drug but also of any negative effects as well. So there's a lot of work involved there. And there's a lot of scope for people who want to have a job.
I bet there is. I bet there is. I can fully affirm that too. Now, to tell us about some of the diseases, those are preventable, for the benefit of the Asian community, Sikhs at large, and so forth. So what can be done in very simple ways that everyone can practice in their own settings, in their own homes?
Thank you. So, yes, there is a problem amongst Indian Asians and Sikhs as well of a higher rate of heart disease and stroke, about 50 to 70% higher than the native white population in this country. And we've researched thoroughly the potential causes for this, but we haven't found one single answer. Asians have lower cholesterol, actually, lower blood pressure as well. But one thing that does seem to be universal amongst Asians, Indian Asians who have migrated from India, is a higher incidence of diabetes. And that's almost certainly related to their increased weight as well.
Now, and very interestingly, there's a lot can be done by the medics, by the doctors, by the nurses, and so forth in the community. And I know Pooja has been involved and has done some charitable work in this sector. Let's hear about her views.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think it's all very well to do the research, get these amazing results published in amazing journals that we have available to us that are read by so many scientific people, but how do we get the message across to our own communities? This is where we struggle. In the news, we hear headlines we get, and to be honest, even those can be misconstrued by the media on several occasions. So I think in our communities, particularly in the Sikh community, we have to rely on professionals to go out there and break it down in plain English, exactly what the problem is, exactly what the weight of the problem is, and how we can go about and address it. And I did exactly that. There is a group that meets every Wednesday as part of Southall Gurdwara called the Male Guild, and they do exactly that. They encourage people to come in and talk about their profession, be it medical, be it dental, and get that message across to them. So I went there. My research as part of my training was in stroke medicine and how to recognize a stroke. And I talked to these, most of them are 60 plus, retired, what they can do, how they can recognize a stroke, and what is available to them if they get to hospital in time. So this was a very rewarding experience for me. People had many questions about it. They were very enlightened. Many hadn't even seen the adverts, even though there's been a very strong campaign on how to recognize a stroke. Many were unaware of this. So seeing someone from your own background come and talk to you in a level that they can understand, reiterating points that they don't understand. It's a very informal a group that meets, and I think that's where we can have an impact, and that's where we can bring the message from the lab to the community.
Absolutely brilliant, adorable. And I sincerely hope the message is loud and clear to everyone involved with the community services, that that's the way forward. No good doing researches for the sake of journals. You need to pass on the message to the community. If it's not passed on, it ain't no good. When we move on, we've been talking about professionalism here. I know we remain focused on the medical aspects of the professionalism, but as alluded earlier on, we have some very prominent business people sitting in this audience here. I really would like to explore further about where is it Sikhism are at the moment in terms of professionalism, in terms of business aspects and so forth. What is it more can be done? Are we really involved in the innovative ways of working, in the smart ways of working? What new ideas have we got to the new ventures? You wait and see. You're going to be listening to this, and it's going to be heart-throbbing. It's Amarjit.
Sri Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Sri Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. We are going through a recession from the last 4 or 5 years. Even you discount this recession, but world economy has grown many folds in the last 20-25 years. So there is a lot of potential to do business. If you look into the list of millionaires, you will find that more than 50% of the millionaires anytime in the world are self-made persons. So the opportunities are unlimited. It all depends on whether you are in the right direction or not. See, after the dismantling of the communism, there was a lot of potential for the small businesses, and many people became millionaire starting from the small businesses. But recently, from the last 10-15 years, the corporate sector has become very strong, and that is a big threat to the small businesses. Now, what to do? I have worked in the bank for the 17 years in various positions, including the forex trader. And from the last 23 years, I am in the business. So I will share with you my experience while working with the bank and in the business. As I mentioned, that the corporate sector has become very strong, and this is a threat to the small businesses. If you look into the corner shops and other, Sainsbury, Tesco, they are also opening the corner shops. And if you want to buy, say, clothing, you will be going to the multiple chains. If you want to buy shoes, you will be going to the multiple chains. So the private standalone shops potential is very limited, unless they are just like in South Hall area selling jewelry or Asian or Indian grocery items. So what I was thinking, but the best way now for the Sikhs, or the Sikhs are doing very well in the business. Let me share this with you. But what is the message for the young generation? What business they should identify? This is the question I think you have put to me. As I said that the scope is with the corporate sector. So if you want to be a professional, it's very good. And you can provide services to the corporate sector. And if you want to do a business, see, for the corporate sector, the main challenge, apart from the retailing the goods, the main challenge is the sourcing. And there is a lot of opportunity to come in the supply chain. So when I left banking, I was thinking what to do. Then I thought of entering into the supply chain of the corporate sector. See, as I mentioned, that in this country, manufacturing is decreasing. There is hardly any manufacturing left. So these are being sourced from the third world countries where the labor is cheap. And there, see, when you're sourcing from third world, you must have heard that there was a big tragedy in Bangladesh. 8-story factory has collapsed and several hundred persons were killed. So sourcing from the third world country is very difficult. And here is the opportunity to support to the corporate sector. They can't go to the factory, but a middleman can bring factory to their doorsteps. So I enter into this business of import and distribution to the high street retailers. So my suggestion is that whatever you want to do, you should see what is the potential. And potential is working with the corporate sector. And earlier in communism, the people were employee of the state. In due course, different type of communism is coming. Most of the people will be employee of the corporate sector. So if you are linked with the corporate sector, there are a lot of opportunity. Whenever you want to do any business, think what is the potential. And most of the people now who are making money, they are working with the corporate sector because more than 60-70% business in any country is being controlled by them. Thank you.
On the similar vein, let's hear views from Gulati ji, who has also been in this business for quite some time and is a very seasoned man.
Why Khalsa, why Fateh. Dassan ji has a different experience. They told you how they went into the business. I went into the business in 1973. That time, resources, knowledge, how to go about was very limited. Not only that, being an Indian and with turban was slightly difficult. And I don't have any capital at that time. So we started from the markets. From the market, we grow, retail shop, retail to wholesale. And wholesale, the unique thing was we start doing garments which were not selling in the high street. So we grew. Then the time came, market start changing, and wholesale can start becoming more difficult, and every day either you go into join the mainstream or have something which is sort of what they call it, boutique type clothes. People, not everybody likes it, but everyone likes to wear it. So we start importing from India. And originally, I start buying from London, from the other importers. Then I started importing myself. Over the years, since people have been saying, our customers, they keep coming back, the business is getting difficult. There are still opportunities. There is not, you can't do it. Few of my customers, they still wanted to do the business, but the way their business was going was every day was going downhill. So I suggested them start doing the internet selling. And so far, about 6 of my customers, I've turned them into internet companies. They buy from me and they sell it on the internet. This is the business, it's a way forward. There are still opportunities. There's still a lot of things. Before you start, you think what you want to do, what is your aim, and how to get about it. Once you come to know that, you will be successful. But in business, I must say, you must be honest with your customers. That is the success of my business. At this point, that's up. Can I add a little bit more thing there? Dr. Pooja was saying they've done the research, they can put it in the journals, but how to bring awareness into our community. That's where the Gurdwara roles comes. In all the Gurdwaras, if they do an effort and do some workshops there, blood testing, diabetes testing, that kind of workshop can be made a part and parcel of every Gurdwara. This is where you can bring awareness into our community. Vaheguru Khalsa, Vaheguru Fateh.
Gulati ji, that was absolutely sensational. I really am very proud and pleased to hear what you said. And thank you for touching base again about Pooja's work being disseminated the way you're trying to explain. I think that should be taken on board. And also really brings home the point, no point doing different things. Do things differently. That's the way forward.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. My name is Surinder Singh Khurana. I've been working in the banking for the last 43 years. I mean, here everybody talking about the business. I share my experience in the banking, where people goes mainly wrong in the business. When you borrow the money for the business, and if you don't manage the funds properly, you will go wrong. Or diversification of the funds. When you borrow money for the business and you use for funds for your car or for your own luxuries, there you go wrong. I request you, before doing any business, study your first and manage your funds properly. Thank you.
Sitting left on me is Chahal, who's been involved in this business for quite a number of years now and has been a successful entrepreneur. Let's hear his views. What is it we need to be doing about providing a nice, well-organized care for the elderly?
Thank you. Yes, as Kulvinder ji said, care of the elderly is becoming a major issue as more and more of us living much longer, and obviously in a later stage we require some level of care. And at the same time, we need to understand once we get older, then the other complication comes. So we may not have the same quality of life once you live beyond a certain age, but we have to deal with those issues. We have to understand, we have to accept those issues. It's just no good saying, sorry, I cannot cope with my mother, I cannot cope with my dad. That's not good enough. You need to have early advice. You need to see your GP, have some advice, have some medication. There's all sort of medication and advice and education is available. How to look after the elderly. Many times, majority of the cases, what we experience, they need a very a simple care. It's just a social care, nothing major. All they need, cup of tea, they need to talk to somebody, and just a basic social care. And that's all they need. All they need, somebody to talk to them, and so that, they feel part of the life. That's all. But obviously, later stage, once the clinical requirements comes in, as people are, as I said earlier, living much longer, then the other complication comes in, things like dementia. Obviously, nowadays is discussed, or in the head news always, that we are, as a country, not ready. We haven't got the resources to deal with the people who are suffering with dementia. Once again, memory loss or forgetfulness is part of the aging process. We all forget things. That doesn't mean it's a big taboo that need to be taken lightly, and need to understand that implication, and have some sort of training or understanding from your GP. That should be the first port of call. Obviously, when decisions are made, this creates huge pressure on the family. For the simple reason, because there was no plan in place. If my mum or dad require some sort of care, there was no planning. And many times what happens, a person have a fall and ends up in an A&E, and the A&E says, sorry, your mum or dad cannot go home because he needs specialist care, and what are you going to do about it? And the family have got no idea what to do, where to go. Social services, NHS got very limited funds. In particular, in the aging population, the funds will be less and less. So we need to educate ourselves how we're going to look after our elderly as long as possible, and keeping them happy and in their own homes.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. We've come to the end of the day, and it's been a very, very enjoyable day here. Apart from the beautiful weather, I have to say that I have to firstly thank Sardar Tarlochan Singh for allowing us to use his house here, and all the food we've eaten, and all the guests that he invited. But of course, I want to thank you as well for hosting it for us. But I do have a couple of questions to summarize it. If I was watching the whole interview that we've done with all the various people, a couple of things have come out. One is education. One is helping the elderly. And of course, they actually have elderly homes that they're trying to gain experience in, how the gurdwaras can play a role. So I wanted to ask you, it's okay, mentioning all these ideas, but we need solutions. Like you asked one gentleman about gurdwara ki karna chahiye. So I wanted you to just summarize what the day's been for you and what we've learned from it.
Yeah. Like yourself, I would really again like to thank Sikh Channel first of all for really organizing such a fascinating program. And of course, thanks to our host, who has been tremendous. Well, traditionally he's done that, so it was no surprise to me. And thank you for asking me to chair this or monitor it. The issue that has been raised today about the education of the Sikh generation right from childhood onwards, I'm of the strong views, and those views were coming from the guests as well, that this must continue in the format of teaching about Sikh education, about Sikhism, about their values, about our identity, but not only to the children. I think we're missing a point here, and that was highlighted, that it's even the grown-ups also need to be reminded about it, whether that's done through gurudwaras or the faith schools, as Dassanji was talking about, or any other source. But this is a primary thing. Without education, we're going to be missing out lots of tricks. That also is going to be making us a bit of a, what is called symbiotic phenomenon here, a very cohesive society, and attachment towards the gurudwaras, which is our pilgrimage place where we go and worship and learn a lot. So that's the core value about Sikhism. Second thing that came up also was about different professions that we're talking about. We need to now strive into entering a variety of other high society, high profile, public kind of status jobs. For example, being a politician, joining the police force, becoming a sportsman, becoming an idol, or even in banking. I know there are people doing these kind of jobs, but we really need to the top ranking positions. Involvement of gurudwaras about disseminating the information about prevention of disease and how to handle is something like we already have discussed about organizing workshops. If gurudwaras are keen, then I can suggest that they can talk to not only the consultants but GPs in their own areas, or there are other health professionals called the district nurses or even practice nurses. They are very capable kind of professionals who can come and actually talk to people, making them aware of simple things like how to be eating healthily, dieting, and doing some gentle exercises can prevent a lot of illnesses. It's not only just prevention, and once you have an illness, how to cope with it. Maybe the health professionals at the moment may not have enough time, or you might not have bothered to go and see your GP or the consultant. But these kind of platforms or workshops can give a lot of information in your own cozy environment, which can have a massive impact in improving the health of the nation, health of the Sikhs. Care of the elderly is something very new. This is going to be a serious problem, not only for the Sikhs. The reason is because this is still considered to be a taboo, that, oh my goodness, tusi apne maa piyo nu kithe bhejta? Why couldn't you look after them at home? We need to change with time. We need to change with how circumstances have changed. Your responsibilities, your commitments at job, your commitments to look after your children, and so forth. Most importantly, what we forget is that we are not professionals to be able to provide the care that the elderly couple or elderly parents might need. You need to bring in the professionals. The nursing homes, the day centers, this must be utilized in a positive manner, not consider this to be a taboo. Yeah, you're dismissing your parents.
True. I mean, I think those are valid points. All of them are valid, that we should make sure that people don't think कि हाय जी अपने बुजुर्गों ਨੂੰ जाके home ਵਿੱਚ पाता. I mean, that shouldn't be the case. We should encourage children to look after their parents. That tradition, as long as you can. There might come a point where you cannot. That's what we're trying to say here. So, with that coming to the end of our program, is there anything that you'd like to say finally to the Sikh channel viewers?
I'm delighted, I'm honored that we were given this opportunity to talk, and I'm sure my old guest would say the same as well. What I'm only going to say is that this channel has got no sponsorships. They do not believe in raising funds through advertisements and so forth. Please, if you can help them, donate whatever you can on a regular basis so that you can enjoy the viewing that these people are trying to organize for you. You will learn, we will learn, the whole community will take advantage of that. They can't survive without your help. Waheguru Ji Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.